Welcome to another episode of Success in Cardiology. My name is Deborah Lockwood from Life Changer, and I have with me Scott Solder, who is co-founder and director of the Active Bystander Training Company. So he was a BBC journalist with an interest in executive coaching and persuasive communication, was invited to create a program about challenging poor behaviour. And this was so successful that from it, the Active Bystander Training Company was born. He's also author of a book called You Need to Get This Book to Get What You Want by Mark Palmer and Scott Solder, published by Simon & Schuster, which sounds like an absolute read. So welcome, Scott. And please tell us a little bit more about that background. What made you develop this program? Was it particularly for the medical profession, or was it for just anybody? And just a little bit of the background.
Well, first of all, thanks for asking me to talk to you today, Deborah. It's always a privilege to tell our story because, well, hopefully, people will find it helpful. Because, in answer to your question, it was designed just to help anybody at all. There was no specific target person in our minds when we put together the program. The brief was very simply. There are lots of training programs out there that sort of try to tell people what an active bystander is and why it's a good idea to speak up against bad behavior in the workplace. But we got together and we really looked at everything across the market, and nobody was really telling anyone how to challenge the poor behavior. They were telling everyone why we should, but no one was saying what you say. And I thought my co-writer, my co-founder Sue, and I sort of looked and said, well, that's kind of the stuff I know, really, isn't it? Because I know a lot about assertive language and persuasive communication. I took a sabbatical year out to write my book, which is all about that. So let's put a load of language into a session and create something that can be consumed very quickly. Our sessions are only 90 minutes long maximum, which are really, that's pretty fast for a training program, which usually goes on for either half a day or a whole day. And let's ram it with lots of clever words and phrases and body language that really help you to speak up with impact and just know what to say, because nobody's going to have the confidence to challenge anybody unless they've got the words ready to go. And that's the story. It basically started working very, very quickly. People were finding great success with it. And our first sort of big client, which was one of the world's leading universities, rolled it out across their workforce, and then asked some occupational psychologists to do a study on the impact, on how well it was working. And they found quite categorically that there was evidence of culture change on the ground among their workforce. People were starting to speak up and say, hold on, I didn't think what you said there was particularly respectful, things like that. And they were seeing this sort of difference it was making. And as a result of that, it just became something that, first of all, the whole of the university sector wanted because it works so well. And I don't know if you know, but in academia, there can be problems with behavior and hierarchy, and certainly among academics. And so it wasn't targeted at academics, but it did begin among academics and then also the non-academic staff. And it sort of took off from there, really. And actually, funnily enough, you talk about the medical industry, the healthcare industry. And that became, I guess, a thing for us within about a year, maybe 18 months, where the first NHS Trust contacted us, asked us to run some sessions for them, which we did. And then suddenly it took off hugely in the NHS. I think we work with 80 NHS trusts now. And that's only in the UK. We work in the healthcare sector in Ireland and the Netherlands as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts of expanding it more worldwide, or at least to other, English-speaking areas like America and Australia?
Well, interestingly, I mean, most of our, since COVID, most of our delivery is online, and not all of it, some of it certainly is face to face, but most of it is online. So we are kind of already in those countries. We can operate anywhere because I would say probably 85% of what we do is on Zoom or Teams. We are already in four languages. We operate in English, French, German, and Dutch, and we have another operation in the Netherlands and a small operation in Germany. So we are able to deliver face to face in those countries as well. So I guess we're already global. The US market is on hold a little at the moment just because of the current political situation, and the Trump administration is not really permitting expenditure by the public sector on anything that might be related to DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion. We aren't DEI. And we know our training is not DEI training at all, but a lot of people will either see it as that or it comes from that budget when people are buying our services. So that's on hold unless anybody is interested, we'll do it, but we're not targeting our operation at the US just for now.
Yeah, no, understood. Yes, so I mentioned the medical profession mostly because, I'm particularly talking to early career cardiologists, and I know, for a fact that cardiology has been a male-dominated specialty for a very long time, and there is quite a lot of evidence that there's still a problem with the way they treat both women and minorities, the way they're treated in there. So it's a really important subject for us. So great to know that your training is there. And one of the other things is that this series is really directed primarily at women, not exclusively, but primarily. And we would like to have an environment where women support women. So this idea of standing up and speaking out when you see some kind of harassment or discrimination going on is really important to us. So thank you very much for the work that you're doing. I think it's great. I went to one of your trainings, which I can recommend to everyone. Fantastic training, and it's absolutely true that we see these sort of things going on and we want to intervene, but then you think, well, what can I do? So would you mind giving away just one or two little secrets of what one can do?
Absolutely. I mean, I guess, well, first of all, thank you for saying that. I hope we do good in the world. That's what we set out to do. So it's nice to hear you say those words. The way you challenge someone's behavior splits into two very specific stages. The first is to overcome what we call the freeze. I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, or if you're watching this, if you've ever been in the situation where somebody behaves badly in the workplace. The first thing I can tell you is they won't give you warning. They won't say, "Excuse me a second, I'm just about to be extremely disrespectful to you or sexually inappropriate with you." That just doesn't happen. It happens, it comes out of the blue. And when something happens out of the blue that shocks us or threatens us or makes us feel scared, we have an absolute instinctive response, which is to freeze. It makes complete sense because if you go back to when we, lived in kind of herds out on the land, thousands of years ago, of course, the best way to respond to a predator, if there's a group of you, is for you as an individual to freeze because you freeze within the crowd, you don't really stand out, and there's every statistical chance that that predator will not eat you if you freeze initially, because the predator's attention will be attracted by the one that tries to run away or the one whose baby cries or makes a noise in some way. So freezing works. The statistics are on your side if you just freeze. And so, of course, we've become evolutionarily hardwired to do this whenever we feel threatened. We can't help it. Freezing is a really good survival response. And then the fight or the flight response comes after that if the freezing doesn't work. If that predator looks at you and basically decides, no, no, you are my breakfast after all, the fight or flight kicks in. And that's when you try to fight the predator off or you try to outrun the predator. But the first one, which is the most successful, is for the predator not to see you. So this is a problem because we've still got this instinct. We carry it into the workplace, even though there are no lions, there are no tigers there. It's still an evolutionary response. And so we sort of freeze and don't know what to do when somebody behaves really badly. And we ask ourselves, did that just happen? I don't know if you've been in that situation. You actually question yourself. Did that person just say that? Did that actually happen? Did I hear that correctly? And then very often, as you do this double take, you begin to answer yourself with self-doubt. You start to say, actually, no, I don't think they did say that. I think maybe I was mistaken. Or maybe if they did say that, they speak like that to everybody and I'm just overreacting. Maybe I'm just being a bit paranoid today. And all of these doubts go through your head and you end up doing nothing. So the first thing to do is techniques to overcome the freeze. Okay, I can't stop you freezing. Can't undo thousands of years of evolution. The session's good, but it's not that good. But what it can do is help you to get past the freeze. So as soon as you feel yourself freezing and doing the double take, there are techniques to ask yourself questions. What do I do now to get past this point? And we call that the 4Ds. And the 4Ds are direct action. Give yourself four options. Do I take direct action, which is to challenge the situation head on? Do I cause a distraction, which is the second D, changing the subject, interrupt what's going on? Third D, do I delegate? Do I speak to someone else and ask them to intervene? Or do I delay and just take some time out and just have a think, get my head together, maybe take some advice? There's no rush. Never ever worry that, somebody's going to say, sorry, you're too late. You should have spoken up at the time. Nah, it's never too late. All you need to do is say, look, this bothered me at the time when this happened, and it's still bothering me. And that makes it current again. So that's the first stage, is to overcome the freeze. After that, we then need to be assertive. We pick our D. If I'm going to pick, let's say I'm going to pick direct action as one of my 4Ds. That's my option to challenge you. Okay, well, what do I say? Well, one of the really sort of, I guess, effective things to say is if, for example, Deborah, you had said something to me that made me feel uncomfortable at work, I could say, hey, Deborah, that felt quite aggressive to me, what you said just then. If I say that felt quite aggressive to me, what that means is that I'm the master of how I feel. I know how I feel. And it's very difficult for you to say, no, it didn't, because you don't know how I feel. Whereas if I say, Deborah, you're being aggressive to me at the moment,
Mhm.
you could say, no, I'm not. That was
Right.
just a joke, or I'm just a bit stressed at work. No, I'm not. I'm not. And you might genuinely believe that you're not being aggressive to me. But if I say to you, but it felt aggressive to me, I just wanted you to know that. Perhaps if you could frame that in a different way next time, that might be better for both of us. But I just want to let you know that that did feel aggressive. It's much harder for you to argue. And, what sort of person is going to say, well, tough, I'm just going to speak to you like that anyway? Most, not all, most people would actually change their behavior there. And that's what's really important here is if we sort of sweep away the woods and the trees, is just to look at the situation and say, well, what is our goal? Well, if I'm going to challenge someone's behavior, what is my goal? And it is very simply to get them to behave differently next time.
Mhm.
That's it. I don't necessarily want them fired. I don't necessarily want a big drama. I just want them to stop doing that. I don't want that to happen again. And if everybody, goes out and starts doing this, then you really do get behavior change. And you actually do. We have evidence of that. So to answer your question, there's quite a lot in it, but there are two tips I can give you.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating, and I think a lot of our audience will appreciate exactly what you were saying, because we have an equivalent thing in cardiology, in ACLS, so advanced cardiac life support. If somebody has a cardiac arrest in front of you, the first thing that happens is you think, oh my God, what do I do? And if when you say that, nothing comes back, you freeze. If when you say that, what comes back is, well, ABC. airway, breathing, circulation.
Uh,
You've got somewhere to start. Whereas, so now if we see something that we don't like behaviorally, we can think, what the heck do I do here? And back from the universe can come 4Ds, which one am I going to go for? And
okay.
so I think that's lovely. And it will, do, again, with this cardiac arrest situation there's a saying that adequate care given is better than perfect care withheld. And so,
Okay.
again, if you're the witness rather than if you're the receiver of bad behavior, then you really have to kind of do something, or go away into a corner and cry, sort of thing might be, or something. But you have to do something. But when you're a witness, there is this option just to witness and say and do absolutely nothing. But if when you're a witness and you think, oh, what can I do? That will come, well, okay, which of the 4Ds? Then I think that'll be really helpful. And I think everyone can relate to that because of cardiac arrest. So what fits in very well with the cardiology audience, what you were just saying.
Great, great. And just to add to that, Deborah, I mean, and we do explain this in the training, and that is that the kind of freeze is the subconscious response. That's the subconscious part of your brain sort of taking over. And the 4Ds, or in your case, ABC, airways, breathing, circulation, that is all you're doing there by having those little mnemonics. All that is kickstarting the logical part of your brain, the conscious part of your brain, the bit that thinks rather than the bit that just reacts in a survival kind of way. And you're just kickstarting that bit by giving it options, and that's a real, from all the work that I've done in that area, that the way you start thinking consciously very often is just simply to give yourself options. It's one of the best things you can do. And, I use that technique in coaching as well. When people are stuck, whenever you're stuck, you don't know what to do, you're stuck in a situation, you say, well, I have no choice. Well, number one, having no choice means you're dead, actually. The only people that have no choice are dead. The people that have one choice tend to be robots. They're programmed, and they just do as they're told. People that have two choices, that's a dilemma, and that's never particularly pleasant. The horns of a dilemma is a horrible place to be, but try and generate yourself at least three options, because if you've got three options, you feel like you have proper choice there. And that the ABC thing may be, based on that as well, because three options feels comfortable, three or four. And as soon as you've got those, you can sort of sit back and think, okay, so which one do I do now? And it's always a really good tip. If you're stuck in anything, just give yourself some options.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's wonderful. So, do you go out and do these active bystander trainings yourself as well?
I
Yeah.
do, yeah, I do. I mean, we have our company now, we have, I think, 23 different trainers, mostly in the UK, but we've got four trainers who are not in the UK. And I do fewer, because obviously as the business has got bigger, it requires running.
Mm.
So I do run the business as well, but I tend to do some of the really big events like conferences, and also some of our very big ticket clients. We have some quite high profile clients whose names I can't share with you, but those sort of clients I tend to do as well to really sort of super serve them.
hmm So, if someone in the audience is, let's say, they're being actively harassed or discriminated against, how do they arrange to get some training if it's not going to be just available at a conference they're about to attend? How can they do that?
The way that we run our training is that the organization contacts us, and we do one of two things. We either run a session for a specific group of people, so it might be a particular cohort or a department, or we roll it out. So the organization basically says, right, we would like you to train everybody who works here. And then over a period of time, through a series of courses, we manage to get to everybody, or nearly everybody within the organization. So I would say that if, as an individual cardiologist, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you are being treated poorly at work, or you're witnessing somebody treating others badly at work, the first thing to do is to speak to somebody who has the ability to book sessions like this for your cohort, for you and the department you work in, or the wider organization. That could be a senior person who you can, your line manager, speak to them about that. Or obviously, if you're within a trust or a wider healthcare setting, then speaking to your HR or learning and development team, and they have the ability to organize sessions for you. It may well be, depending on which trust you work with, it may well be that your trust already works with us, and that they can just organize the session for you.
So do you not have any plans, for example, to put a training session online where people can sign up and pay a fee and watch the training?
Interestingly, we do have an e-learning package, and that is currently that's available for our customers to buy subscriptions for. So, for example, we have two or three trusts. It's fairly new. This we've only we launched it about a year ago, I think. But I think we've got two or three NHS trusts who have purchased, I don't know, a few thousand licenses, which are available on their learning management systems, which people can subscribe to via the workplace for free because their employer has purchased those subscriptions. Interestingly, we are looking at a personal subscription model as well, which individuals can just go online, pay a very small fee, a very manageable small fee, and therefore get the session on their phone or on their personal computer. So we are looking at that. We haven't launched it yet, but that is something in the pipeline. But I still would say it's worth checking with whoever employs you, because it may well be that they have already got the e-learning package on your own learning management system anyway.
Well, and even if not, if there's a culture of abuse in your department, then it is something they should be looking at getting.
And may well, it's a growing thing. It's certainly we're noticing. I mean, it's true. It is true to say that lots of the trusts, the NHS trusts that we work with, really do like our facilitator-led training. But obviously, the e-learning option is really good for people that are working antisocial hours or have a huge workload, or who just they can't quite arrange the logistics to set up a session. It's a good way of managing to access our content in another way.
Yeah. And I will say that I participated in one of these events because it was they were running sessions. Your company were running sessions at the British Cardiac Society meeting. So hopefully you will get invitations from other similar meetings, and the word will spread that way as well. Because I would certainly say that cardiology is an area that you should be looking at having, if you want to have an impact on the world. It's an area that needs this impact. So if you had to give just one piece of advice to someone who comes to you saying, like, I'm in real trouble here, I'm having a terrible time at work, what's your most important piece of advice?
My most important piece of advice is it goes again right back to human nature. Okay, if ever you want to try and explain what we do, I think my very strong view is just go back to what we're genetically designed to do, because that informs, we think we're clever, but we're not that clever. We're run by genetics. We have the power of logic, of course, but it's not as good at overriding our genetic makeup as perhaps we would like to think. And if somebody is behaving badly and nobody says anything and nobody does anything, that person will repeat the behavior. Okay, if you are a parent, you will know this. Okay, if a child does something that they know is wrong and you don't do anything about it, they will do it again. Okay, the only way of trying to stop them from doing that is to create a consequence in order for them not to do that again. So that's the first thing. The second thing, which is part of that, which is so important, is that not only will they do it again, but we humans are designed to push boundaries. Lots of mammals are, right? we're designed to expand our territory and push boundaries. So it's in our makeup to, if we see a boundary, to push it. So not only will that person repeat the behavior, but they will go a little bit further next time just to see if I can get away with that as well. And if nobody says anything, guess what? They'll repeat the behavior again and they'll try and go a bit further next time.
Yeah.
So I don't need to tell you, do I? That if you don't say anything over time, that behavior will not stay the same. It will most probably get worse. It will not go away. So it's really important to try and do something. And if everybody just starts doing something, then things can change pretty quickly. And just to sort of set people's mind at rest, really, because I know this is a concern, challenging poor behavior does not have to be a big scene where you take a big deep breath and say, okay, I'm going to speak to a really senior person here, and this is really scary, and this could, end my career. It doesn't have to be that. You just looking at somebody and saying, did you just say that? Is a perfectly good challenge and often much more powerful. Challenging poor behavior is very simply showing a little bit of disquiet and just bringing to the surface what most people will rely on being kept beneath the radar. Most people assume that others will let it go. And just by acknowledging it in a low level way, very often stops the behavior.
Unless perhaps it's kind of already very ingrained from having gotten away with it for years before, which is sometimes the case. Anyway, I think that was wonderful. That was so useful. And thank you very much, Scott. And I really wish you and your Active Bystander Training Company the very best. I hope it spreads not just throughout the NHS in England, but throughout the world, because there's so much a need for this. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Deborah. That's really nice of you to say. And thanks again for asking me to speak to you today.